Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at reCappin Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, darling. How are you today?
I am doing really well. It is the holiday season, and we are doing a very fun, magical recap today. We are recapping Disenchanted 2022 musical adventure. It's an hour and 58 minutes long. It's rated PG, and it's available on Disney Plus. Here's a quick summary. Years after her happily ever after, Giselle, Robert, and Morgan moved to a new community, and Andalusia and the real world are thrown off balance. This movie stars Amy Adams as Giselle, Patrick Dempsey as Robert Phillip, James Cheekbone Marsden as Prince Edward. My sister and I used to call him Cheekbones growing up because throwback, X-Men, he was Cyclone. You didn't even see the face, you saw the features.
Listen,
face card never declined. My God. Okay.
There's a reason why he was the other man in the Notebook. There's a reason why that was a hard decision. So
the great Idina Menzel as Nancy. We have Gabriella Baldacchino as Morgan. Maya Rudolph, who is so much fun, as Melvina Monroe. Jayma Mays as Ruby. Yvette Nicole Brown, huge fan of hers, as Rosaline. Colton Stewart as Tyson, and Oscar Nunez as Edgar.
I really wish I could remember the way that John Travolta said Idina Menzel's name that one year, because that's all I think of every time.
I was really trying to figure that out, but I'm also trying not to butcher people's names at the same time. But I was like, I think he called it Idina Mazine or something crazy, it was worse than that. Mm-hmm. It was worse than that. This film was directed by Adam Shekbin and screenwriter Brigitte Hills. Amy Adam is a producer on here, as well as Adam. The film was released November 18th, 2022. Rotten Tomatoes. Critics gave this film 39%. Audience scores gave this film 54%. And Google users gave this sequel 74%. Ashley, what's your grade for Disenchanted?
All right. So I have to admit, I've only seen the original maybe once or twice. So coming into the sequel, I did not have any expectations. I just turned it on over the Thanksgiving holiday as a new film that was out, see what was going on, get some little musical magic. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it was cute. It was a nice reunion kind of the world that I remember it being, with, Giselle being so bubbly and so sweet and, this whole fairy tale life type of thing. And so I thought the premise was interesting, just to see what life post happily ever after supposedly looks like for her. So I like the premise. And so I enjoyed, to your point, this turn with Maya Rudolph. I thought she was fabulous in this role. And Amy Adams still has that magic that she had from the very beginning. Like, I felt like her performance was nuanced, where you see a little bit of how the world would have changed her a little bit, but she still had the magic of Giselle, because I did rewatch the first one before I rewatched the second one. So for all of those reasons, I gave this a B. What about you?
All right, Ashley. So, really quick before I give my grade, I like to remind our audience that the original Enchanted critics gave the film 93%, audience 80%, and Google users gave it 83%. So,
Much
it
kinder.
is definitely a hit, but to your point, it had been a while since I saw the first, and I was ready to see what it's all about. Amy Adams' performance is just undeniable. Like, I always knew she was a great actress because she's done all the, big films, but her as Giselle is just otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I am like blown away, and it was such a joy to watch.
Well, I think a part of that too is because Amy Adams is so good at drama. So to see her go from being such a dramatic actress in certain projects to then being able to flip that switch and turn this part of her talent on, it's like.
And she sings and she dances. And what she does with her pinkies, I mean, the fact that she has them, I can't even. I would have a cramp.
The way she holds her hands in general to play Giselle, this very delicate balance of hand gesture and all of that, and the all of it. Like, how does she even take herself seriously enough
exactly
to play this role is fascinating.
And that was part of the joy of the first film, right? That tongue in cheek, of her really literally embodying all the Disney princesses into one. So with them coming back and with some very strong musical selections, I gave this an A- because I had fun. I had a lot of fun. All right. So with that being said, let's go into our spoiler alert. So the original movie came out 15 years ago, but we are back in this world, and it's 10 years after Giselle, Robert, and Morgan's happily ever after. We are back in New York. There's an adorable new addition, Sophie, but it's moving day. The family is moving to the burbs, Monroeville. They move into a fixer-upper. That construction is obviously still in progress. Giselle is greeted by the queen bee, Maya Rudolph, and her minions. Morgan, of course, being uprooted, is having a pretty hard time adjusting to a new pace and lack of clothing. Is moving to the suburbs a natural evolution?
I don't think so. I think if it wasn't for Giselle's desire to find some semblance of the life that she had in her original fairy tale, I think they would have been just fine in New York City. I think she's just searching for a sense of happiness that has eluded her now that she's in the thick of it, right? Because in fairy tales, we stop at the happily ever after portion. That's why I thought this was a fascinating concept, because it's like, what happens to the princess post happily ever after? And for Giselle, even Giselle never knew what came next.
Exactly.
So she's searching for it right now.
Absolutely. Tensions increase at home. Robert is trying to figure out his new commute, going back and forth into the city. The relationship between Giselle and Morgan is slowly pulling apart. I would say that I've always appreciated Robert and Morgan's patience with Giselle, because I mean, could you be with someone who is so starry-eyed like Giselle was when she first dropped into New York City?
I don't know. When I rewatched the first one, I was like, she was definitely a handful at the very beginning because she was so naive to everything, but her general disposition, especially given society, was undeniable.
Yes.
It's undeniable to meet someone who's that genuinely kind, that genuinely sincere. So I definitely understood the attraction. But I was more curious about Morgan now that she's a teenager, because when she was a kid, it makes sense to be more attracted or like get caught up in the mindset of Giselle. But now that you older, is she annoying or is she endearing? And as a teenage girl, she would have been annoying AF.
The fact that Giselle was constantly trying to catch, oh, that's sarcasm, right? That was kind of funny to me.
Right. But thankfully, they've had the 10 years to grow together. If Giselle had just come into the household and Morgan was a teenager, forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
Forget about it.
As I mentioned, Giselle and Morgan's relationship was literally falling apart, so much so that Giselle thought it would be a great idea to introduce Morgan to her new quote unquote friends, as if, first of all, transitioning to new schools is difficult, but transitioning to new schools as a teenager and not being able to wear your own clothes that have the comfort of your own style, and you have your perpetually optimistic stepmother trying to introduce you to the new people. Yeah, it would be kind of rough. I don't blame Morgan for needing space, but her not showing up that night was not okay. But I knew things were definitely going in the wrong direction when she called Giselle stepmother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would have rather worn almost anything else than that dress of Giselle that she wore to school. I'm like, I would have been sick. There's no way. Y'all better find me a Target. I find me a Walmart, find me a 7-Eleven. Y'all better find me something where I can get some type of clothing, because there's no way I'm going on the first day of school as a sophomore or junior in high school wearing flowers on flowers on flowers. That was hard to watch. But the thing that gets me about Giselle and what's always hard to dislike is her heart is always in the best place. So you end up feeling like shit that you feel some type of way.
Very true.
It's very like kicking a puppy. You know what I'm saying?
That's quite accurate. I would agree. Well, Morgan calling Giselle stepmother crushed Giselle, so much so that she uses Sophie's birthday gift that she received from her godparents, the one and only king and queen of Andalasia. Let's talk about that really quick. Please. In our last quick headlines and hot topics, we talked about the intermingling of relationships between TJ Holmes and Amy. Were you surprised to find that these once couples who've apparently mixed and matched are now friendly enough to where their exes are their child's godparents?
Call it movie fairy tale magic, right? Because watching the original Enchanted, she definitely felt some type of way when Amy Adams essentially stole her man, because that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. To be fair, not intentionally.
Not intentionally, but she stole her man. That's just facts. That's what happened in that film. Now, thankfully, she had the prince as her backup, because of course we just have princes on standby when we get dumped. But I was always curious, how did Nancy acclimate to leaving regular life? Like, if this had been more focused on Nancy's character, that would have been a crazy story to explore, because you don't just up and leave reality, your New job, York your City. Family, your friends, everything you've ever known, to go live in this cartoon fairy tale. Like, now in this movie, Nancy is just so normal up as a part of that world, you would never think that she even belonged to the regular world.
You actually you forget. But
you absolutely forget.
I loved it. And it was a lot of fun to see them together. And to
get the pipes of Idina Menzel whenever, because
listen,
what is a Disney song without those pipes?
That part. Giselle takes Sophie's gift the wishing wand. She wished to live in a fairy tale. If you could wish any wish, what wish would you wish?
That's deep. I gave this some thought too, because I wondered if you were going to ask me this question, and I still never came up with a good answer. Because I feel like what I'm supposed to say is like world peace. But let's be honest.
We're selfish.
And not even just that, but if all the magic was getting sucked out of Andalasia with her just asking for a fairy tale life, how they gonna grant me world peace? You know what I mean?
Touche.
I feel like these wishes have to have limits. These wishes have to be smaller scale to not pull out, all the stops out of poor little Andalasia. So I don't know. If I had any wish to wish, it would probably depend on the day. I would probably just ask for, can I go ahead and get that private chef? Boom. Go ahead and fix me some lunch and dinner. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Just small things I feel like I'd probably ask for, because the one thing that this doesn't run out of apparently is magic. Whereas, if this was a genie, you only get 3. And you know what I mean? In certain contexts. So I play this game a little bit, Delora. I'll play this game a little bit with this wand. What would you ask for?
That's a great question. I wrote the question and didn't take the time to figure it out.
Again, probably depend on the day, right? You'd be like,
it really depends on the day. I just don't want to be stressed right now. You know what I mean? So if I were to just say, like, right now in this moment, I want my Christmas cards to be completed and mailed out.
Boom. Easy.
I want all my Christmas shopping done.
Boom. Easy.
And then I think the biggest thing I would do right now is like go on a trip or something. Like, I want to go somewhere.
Boom. Easy. You know what else I do? Pay off this mortgage. Boom. There we go, baby.
I wasn't thinking about grown ass people thoughts. You know what I mean?
I get
that's
you.
The case,
but that literally just hit me. I was like, go ahead and pay off this mortgage. Merry Christmas.
Before you said the mortgage, I literally was like, well, this is too much of a grown up wish. But I'm like, have my house painted.
Yep. All the things.
Fully furnished in the furniture I want.
Because the show I used to think about this all the time was like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Because with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Sabrina was always using her magic on like everyday things. Like, let me make over what I'm about to wear today. So I used to think about it with Sabrina all the time. I was like, if I had powers right now, the things I would do. So I think that's the best way to think about this wand. Like, what are you going to do with this on a daily basis? Yes, pay off all these bills. Hallelujah.
Period.
Let's keep it moving.
Because once they're paid off, we're done. Except for taxes. But maybe we don't have to pay taxes. Boom.
There you go. Government don't come for us. We talking about if we had magic.
2 questions, Ashley. Did Giselle steal that baby's gift?
Steal? No, because again, the wand doesn't run out of magic to our knowledge. So I don't think it was stealing.
And it can be used by any son or daughter of Andalasia.
So I wouldn't say steal, but do I think that she felt some level of desperation that caused her to probably act out of character? Yes. Because I think Giselle wouldn't have normally done something like that. She's had access, I'm sure, to magic for a long time that she's even been around, and she's never chosen to wield that until now because she's trying to make things right with Lil Morgan.
Would you want to live in a fairy tale? If so, what type of character would you be?
No, thank you. I have no interest in living in a fairy tale.
No?
No, thank you. It doesn't really appeal to me.
I think I'd be curious. I've read and watched so many stories about cottages and journeys.
I just be thinking the whole time, if I'm of my right mind, I'd be like, this shit is so corny. Like, I just don't even think I'd be able to take it seriously. Especially like once you get to the singing and the dancing and the townspeople, which it was very Beauty and the Beast there for a little minute.
It was very Cinderella 1997 Rodgers and Hammerstein's Brandy version, which I adore.
There was that too, but when they sang a little bit of like be your guest or something, I was like, so this is just waiting on Belle to just pop up.
Well, that's the beauty of these films though, right? It literally, they take from all of their films and they like wrap it all up, because I have in my notes, Giselle herself is Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and Cinderella all wrapped up in one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, Giselle makes her wish. She thought nothing happened, but guess what? The next day, her house is beautiful. First of all, speaking of that house with those flowers outside of it, I was like, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, it was.
Amy Adams runs in town dancing and singing. It was a moment, okay? And I put in my notes, this is where Amy Adams shined. I was like, sis is hitting notes. Yes, sis. We find out quickly that everyone, and this is what I love about stories like this too, when you have that initial introduction to the new town and the people in certain settings, and then magic takes over and you see them in the fairy tale land. Oh, it's also giving Once Upon a Time. You remember that show?
Yes, of course. Like I said, I just didn't finish it, but I love that show.
Yes. And so to see Edgar, who I was like, I have a feeling he's going to be a mirror. And sure enough, he was the mirror person. And guess who's Queen Bee? Literally the one and only Melvina. And she's a magical queen, which is scary, but apparently Giselle loves it, which is like, rich. Do we love evil queens with powers? I didn't know that was a thing to enjoy. Giselle is with the townspeople. We meet the queen. She obviously looks evil, even though she brought those flowers back to life. The clock strikes and something happens to Giselle's eyes. And we find out, Ashley, that now that she's in a fairy tale land and Morgan is referring to her as stepmother, she is slowly transforming into an evil stepmother. There are several instances that leads up to her seriously transforming into evil. We first experience it when they are at the dress shop. She seems so supportive, but then by the time she got home, poor little Morgan's dress was all shredded. And then you go up into the tower and realize that Morgan is living in a dusty ass.
She got her in the attic.
My question to you, Ashley, is, was Giselle turning evil on your bingo card?
No, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I thought that was a fun twist though, because when the spell was whatever was hitting her eyes, I was like, what is going on? Like, I was lost. I was like, did somebody put a curse on her? Yes. You know, is the town cursed? What's happening? So to find out that they're running with the trope, oh, if you're a stepmother, you're evil. I was like, how many stepmothers are watching this and feel some type of way? Like, y'all cannot get a break in these fairy tale legends. Man. But it was a fun twist, and especially to see kind of what Amy Adams did with it when she flips back and forth between good versus evil, and the voice change and the demeanor change and all of that. Like, it was just a fun little twist. You had to add some drama.
Absolutely. One of my favorite additions to her being evil is her chipmunk turning into an evil cat. He definitely was acting like Lucifer from Cinderella. My favorite lines is he's like, I just feel superior. Why? Why did I accept anything? What?
That was fun.
The queen noticed Giselle, daughter Sophie, had a wand, and of course, her being the evil queen, she wants to get her hand on it. Of course, Giselle is not handing it over, and to your point, the little snapbacks, little quips back and forth Giselle gives to the queen is unexpected, but pretty much like, this isn't mine, we're about your own. Have a great day. The queen sends her minions to get the wand. They're able to capture it. And the best song, in my personal opinion,
mine too,
of this is what gave this movie an A- for me. The song Batter. I was just not ready for so much sass. I was not ready for so much just joy in being evil. I adored it.
Yeah, it was definitely the best musical performance of the movie. And the second time I watched it, it was if I had never watched it before. I was like, this is so delightful. I
This is a
didn't miss
banger
this,
for
but it was
me.
just, yeah, it was just like as if I was watching it again for the first time. I was like, best musical number by far of the film.
I was talking to my husband. I was like, I actually enjoy this one more than the first because I enjoy more the musical selections from this film than I did the first. But I'm looking at this article by screenrant.com and they list all 10 Disenchanted songs ranked from worst to best. So you want to guess the worst and you want to guess the best.
I'm going to say the one we just named was the best. In terms of the worst, though, I don't know if I know enough of the numbers by themselves to guess which one was just the worst. What do they have listed?
They have Even More Enchanted, the finale. So basically the last song at the end.
Because
But
it was corny.
It was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Andalasia was number 9. And of course, Better being number 1. But number 2 is also the other reason why I adore this song, this movie. And it's The Love Power, which is the Idina Menzel song of the film. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Can you have 2 villains in the same story?
Sure. Sure, you can. What again, fairy tale trope. Because if you think about it, a lot of times the baddest of the bad even has their minions. So you still have more than necessarily one bad person that's usually around. Yes. But in this case, there didn't have to be a power struggle. They could have both been bad. I think more so was a power struggle for control of the town then there can't be 2 villainous characters. So I think Amy Adams was just on one, she was just on a little power trip once she got her evil attached to her.
In the lyrics of the song, it says, a tale of Maleficent and Cruella. Nobody bothers talking about that. And I'm like, in fairy tales, no, you're right. There aren't necessarily 2 villains at the same time with the same ambition. But we see it a lot in comic stories.
For sure.
And things along those lines. And
that's why I said there's usually more than one bad character, but whether or not you have 2 villains competing in that same way, not necessarily. But it doesn't mean it has to be the rule.
That's very true. Like every wonderful fairy tale, we have a ball to get to, right?
Or the prince is giving a ball.
Morgan, of course, wants to go, but she has to finish her chores. And right before Giselle relishes in her evilness, she sends her on a journey to Andalasia to save her. But Morgan finds out very quickly that Andalasia is not looking too hot lately. And that's because Giselle's wish to live a fairy tale life is sucking all of the magic from this wondrous cartoon land. But Morgan can save the day. And through the power of love, which is my second favorite song, sang by the great Idina Menzel, the most powerful thing in the world is your memory. And they talked about Morgan's memory tree in the very beginning, and it's brought up again as a literal tree in Andalasia, and how all those memories essentially invoke love. And that's the most powerful thing in the world. I think it's funny because in the first movie, the most powerful thing in the world is true love's kiss. And so now...
the tropiest of tropes.
Yes, but with Disenchanted, I find it interesting that the focus is the love between mother and daughter, or stepmother and daughter. And therefore, it's not so much a kiss, but it's love nonetheless. We have our grand ball, which you need in every fairy tale. Giselle takes over as queen, but it's short-lived because Morgan is able to come back with her memories to remind her of who she is. And at first, you don't think it takes because Giselle rips it up. But of course, the power of love is so palpable, Ashley. Giselle is awakened, but it's not enough because Andalasia is still falling apart. Maya Rudolph's character gets a hold of Morgan. So, what did you think about the big fight off between between the two baddies? Who's your baddie of choice, Ashley?
I mean, I got to be Team Giselle because Giselle didn't mean to be bad. It was a byproduct of this environment, whereas Maya's character, she is just living up to the way she even was in reality, just an exaggerated version. But I was finding certain things interesting with this being played out because I kept wondering, is Giselle's wishes going to run out because all the magic is being sucked out of Andalasia already?
Excellent
That's already affecting everything. And then I was thinking she made the wish to be queen, but all she got was a crown. Like the other queen still was commanding the army and all of that. So like, is there some level of, again, your wishes being now diminished based on everything that's kind of going on? But both of them were wild though, because both of them see the world around them crumbling, but they're so focused on power and control that they're willing to fight it out just for, it reminds me of some people in power in reality, right? Where you're willing to let the world burn as long as you're in the seat of control.
You do know I'm thinking about Game of Thrones and how both Cersei and eventually Daenerys was willing to be the queen of King's Landing, even if they're the queen of dust.
Yeah, the queen of nutting. So, I thought
ashes.
that was interesting where you're so focused on, power that the world be damned. And both of them were very much focused on that. Giselle under a spell, but yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yes, and of course we had to make sure that the clock didn't strike midnight, because if it did, she would be turned evil forever. I have to say, Robert's character, for the most part, was pretty empty for me, as well as Prince Edward. But he really came through towards the end, making sure that the clock didn't strike 12. I thought that was an interesting take in the story. They were like, as long as the clock doesn't literally strike, we should be okay regardless of the actual time. Did you notice that?
Well, yeah, because the magic was coming from the ticking of the clock, and their strategy worked. But it's funny you say you feel like they were pretty kind of useless, because not that I did not notice, but so often female characters get relegated to not really having much in a lot of stories, that in this case, when you're centering the female characters, yay. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Yay.
Exactly.
Exactly. Let the women get their moment and get their stories.
Get their shine. Well, all is well. Andalasia is saved. Giselle is saved. The magic returns. Everything's back to normal. I don't think they necessarily said they all live happily ever after, but it's safe to assume so.
Hey.
What I did appreciate about this ending was Melvina apologizing to Giselle, essentially telling her that there's enough room for everyone in their neighborhood. And of course, Morgan and Giselle reconciling their relationship was very sweet. I appreciated how essentially it was all a dream at the end, right? Except for Giselle and Morgan, who actually knew what happened. And of course, probably the queen and king of Andalasia, but it was a lot of fun. So I have a couple of questions before we end our recap. Ashley, did you miss anything from the first movie going into the second one?
I wondered what happened with Giselle's fashion line, because she did the whole, what was it, Andalasia Designs or something like that,
little girl
in the
dresses.
First movie. So I was like, is she still working? Or are y'all trying to say once she had a baby, she stopped working at the moment? I wasn't quite sure of how that fell. So that I was curious about. I was curious about the one guy who was a baddie in the first one, who ended up turning on the Wicked Queen.
Queen.
Where is
Yes.
he? Is he still living in the real world? What type of life is he living? So just some like
Yes.
breadcrumbs from in the first one that I was curious about. But for the most part, I think they did a good job with, a continuation of the story and picking back up on the life of the central characters that we had from the first film. So there was nothing else for me that was, hanging out there.
So this is way too serious, but I think they could have, in some ways, acknowledged the fact that Giselle was having a hard time because a lot of things were changing in her life outside of her moving from fairy tale land to New York City. She had a kid and she was in charge of another kid. There's a lot of stress that goes into that,
Yeah.
And especially after having a kid, like some of the uneasiness that she was experiencing could have very well been postpartum. You know what I mean? But again, a little too serious for a Disney movie, but it did cross my mind being a mom watching this now.
Yeah. And she was raised by animals. So.
And, right. She didn't even have parents herself. Oh, Giselle. But it was a lot of fun. Again, I really enjoyed the music more in this one than I did the first. I literally play batter sometimes with my child because banger. And can I give it to Maya in that shoulder shimmy when she walked into her palace? I was like, you better get down, girl. I love that she actually sings, and she's part of a Prince tribute band.
Maya Rudolph is?
Yes.
Well, I mean, she had to get a little something from her mama. Her mama had that range. Did not have that range for no reason. Okay.
All right, Ashley, what are your final thoughts on Disenchanted?
Came 15 years later, but like I said, very good continuation of this story. I thought it was a story worth telling because sometimes with sequels, I'm like, I don't think this was really a story that had to be made. This wasn't just fanfare. This was, we have something to say. And I appreciate that. And I thought it was well done. I enjoy Maya Rudolph's turn as a villain. She should do it more often.
Yes.
Amy Adams, you're a award-winning actress for a reason. Because you really have such an ability to capture any character that you decide to step into. And just overall, it was a fun, interesting Thanksgiving holiday, family-friendly film to kind of get into. So I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ashley. And my final thoughts are, it was a lot of fun. To your point, it was not simply fanfare. I actually told somebody, I was like, unlike Hocus Pocus 2, this is how you should do a sequel. Like, you do pay homage, but it's not a template for the entire movie. I really enjoyed the introduction of new characters and just the idea of like bringing the fairy tale world in today's life. What would that look like? Based off what you said earlier, I really do want to see what it was like for Nancy to go from New York into Andalusia.
Yeah. Is that not a story really to tell? Yeah.
That would have been really cool. All right, Ashley, if there's nothing else, time for Hidden Gems.
All right. I only have one hidden gem this week. Not that I have not watched plenty, but this is really the only one that I care to talk about. And that is The Fallout on HBO Max. After seeing Jenna Ortega's performance as Wednesday on Netflix, I wanted to check out some of her other projects. It was a hidden gem for me last week, guys. And this movie, actually, I'd had on my watch list for a while on HBO Max, but I hadn't been wanting to dive into the emotional place that it goes into because it's following the teen survivors of a mass shooting at a high school. But it was interesting. I thought the way that they laid out the story and the focus on particularly 3 teens was compelling. And it's definitely worth a watch, in my opinion. I mean, Jenna Ortega is the star, but you also have the actor who played teenage Randall as one of the main characters in it. And you also have one of the young ladies who grew up from the Dance Moms reality series as a principal actress in this. So I just thought it was a worthwhile story. And it made me feel a little old because Shailene Woodley plays Jenna's therapist. And one of the other actresses from The Secret Life of the American Teenager directed this film. And I'm like, oh my God, we've really handed it over to the next generation of youth. Seriously. So again, worth a watch. That's The Fallout on HBO Max. Delora, what are your hidden gems this week?
Thank you, Ashley. I have 3 hidden gems this week. So the first, it is the KeKe Palmer and her time on SNL, which major key. She made that stellar announcement that she is, yes, indeed pregnant. And she literally utilized her bump in almost all the skits, which was hilarious. And I loved it so much. But some of the standout skits that I think is worth watching, 2 in particular. The first one, the United Teens of Arbery, which is essentially a unionized group of Drake's ex-girlfriends that he likes to use in his music.
Not unionized. I can't.
Hilarious. And then KeKe was like, she's like, I didn't date him, but I want my name back. You know how many times people ask me, KeKe, do you love me? I love it. And then this one, iconic, and she better win an Emmy for this mess. It's a skit called Keenan and Kelly, which she essentially play off Keenan and Kel.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Keenan went and wore a wig. Like he looked like his teenage self. Like it was just so epic. And she acted like Kel's character. And then Kel shows up as a surprise guest. You know, nostalgia. Just, you know, chef's kiss nostalgia. Okay.
I still watch Good Burger from time to time. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
It's Keenan looking like he's 15 years old for me, and he's a grown-ass man. I love it. All right, so my final 2 hidden gems are songs. The first is from Doggyland, which is a Snoop Dogg project that's for children. And he has this song called Affirmation Song. And it's literally a song that talks about today I'm gonna have a great, a wonderful day. It talks about like I'm different, I'm unique, I'm gonna have a wonderful day. I do positive things. It's an affirmation song for children, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Shout out to my girlfriend Jazz. She sent it to me as a TikTok because it was a grown woman listening to this kid affirmation song saying, I can sing this for myself.
Yes.
And then so for me, I went on Apple Music. I tried to do the thing in the mirror with my child. She refuses to do it. She acts shy, which comes in and out of ways, but it's hard to get her to do, I'm going to have a great day when she's grumpy in the morning. But we listen to music, and this right here has been my gateway drug to affirmations for my child. And I am very, very excited. So much so that I also use it for myself because I'm just like, we're going to sing this out loud.
I still remember one that I said they had to say in elementary school. So that sort of stuff sticks with you for sure.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
it does.
Ours was I am somebody. So keep them up.
I am somebody.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
And shout out to Snoop Dogg and all his iterations, you know,
right?
West Coast rapper, Rastafarian, and now he out here.
Martha Stewart's bestie.
Making music for the children, clean music for the children. My final hidden gem is technically not a hidden gem for anyone younger than 25. It's from the K-pop group called BLACKPINK, and it's their song Pink Venom. If you love a good pop moment, this is a song for you. I love this song. They rap, you know, it's like most K-pop music. Some is in English, some is in Korean, but the beats and dance movements they're there. It's a lot of fun, very poppy. Like I said, Blackpink is very, very popular, but to our demographic, not so much probably. But I
Never heard
enjoy
of
them.
them. Never heard of them, but God bless you.
Well, Time just named them Artist of the Year.
I've only seen who made the cover. I haven't even paid any attention to that. So I can't call it. With even artists in the genres I do pay attention to, a lot of times I don't know who they are until there's an award show or something. I'm like, oh, that's who that is? I didn't know I knew that song. So I'm definitely of that age, guys. So tis what it is.
That's all I got for today. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. And thank you guys as always for listening, sticking with us. Like we said, we will have one more week of shows for you guys. And then we're taking a couple weeks off for the holidays to spend time with our loved ones and do all the things that you do this time of year. But until then, we'll see you next time. Be blessed. Stay safe.
Bye.